It is 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Respectable people would either be in church or hungover.
You're not in church.
So, which means one of two things. One, this is a very special group of people who are very, very dedicated to the American dream. Or two, you are hungover. In which case, let me boil down my entire points into just a couple of words, which is find concentrated interests. You want the ability for success, it comes down to this. Find concentrated interests. You will not, cannot, and won't win by representing diffused interests politically. It does not happen. Those of us who try to represent diffused interests usually lose. I want to tell you the tale of two elections, one that I was very involved with. In Colorado. It was interesting, in 1997, I was on the board of directors for the Regional Transportation Authority. It was called RTD, the Regional Transit District. And in 1997, they tried to pass a 67% sales tax increase to build out transit in every direction possible. This thing looked like a sure winner. This thing had popularity in the mid-70s when originally polled. This thing was going to fly. Everyone was excited. The newspapers were excited. It was going to happen. I decided to draw a line in the sand, and being on the board, I said, this can't happen. The numbers don't work. This is insane. I went on about a half-year campaign personally. I put my business on hold. It ended up destroying my personal business, and we ended up taking this thing down. We were outspent about 15-1. We were able to bring it down on election day to 58% no vote. It was a great evening. It was spectacular. It was fun. It was very worthwhile destroying one small business to stop a $7 billion project from taking off. But they don't stop. They don't stop. They keep coming. They keep coming. And when we play defense, we lose. There's no other way. You cannot play defense and not lose. Hell, if you only lose 1/10 of the time, you've lost too many times, and they're willing to come at you 10 times. They never stop. They just keep coming. They are a virus. Fast forward 7 years later. It's 2004. They come back with the same proposal, a 67% tax increase. They tweak a few little things here and there. They make it look a little different. Oh, this is different. This is important. This is spectacular. But they learned how to win the game. Now, we use all of our mental and physical energy. We destroy our own personal businesses. We take time away from our families and our kids so that we can fight this stuff. We don't seem to understand that for them, they go to work to do this stuff. They get paid to do this stuff. We lose money to do our stuff. We go nuts. Their attrition, their inertia will make them win. The fact is, we've got to make money to pay the taxes to keep them employed to work against us. Therefore, we're screwed. And that's exactly what happened in 2004. What happened was, instead of spending $600,000 to pass this initiative, which they did, which they tried in 1997, they raised that a little bit to $4 million to do this. Now tell me, how will the diffused interests raise $4 million? How will taxpayers raise $4 million? Now remember, as they advertise this thing, it's the cost of a cup of coffee a month or a pizza a month. They always put it in coffee or pizza. Of course, if you go to Starbucks lately, you can get a $15 cup of coffee. So that's actually pretty sizable. But it's always something marginal. Let's say it's actually $100 a month. Are you really going to get families to give you $100 to fight this? No. You will get concentrated interest. $4 million. Where did it come from? It came from the concentrated interests. It came from the people who are making money off this. Now let's take a look how I want to compare and contrast a couple of these elections. In 1997, when I was on the board of directors at RTD, I was able to exploit some friction on the board. I was able to divide up the board during the campaign. There were some personality conflicts, and we took advantage of that. And I put forward a resolution I was putting forward resolutions every minute, and I was trying to call in special meetings, and we only needed 3 people out of 15 to call a special meeting. So every day up to the election, I would call a special meeting on something to make us look so incompetent that you wouldn't want to trust us with any money, which was absolutely true. And one of these ideas that I put out there was a resolution that just said RTD is not for sale. And what it was a resolution that said any person or organization that puts in more than, I forget what it was, $500 into the Yes campaign for this cannot get a contract should it pass. You could have, and I put this forward, just to get the point across that this is nothing more than corporate welfare. I had no idea I'd actually get it past the board because somebody was hacked off at somebody else, and it actually passed. Now, this did something incredible. You notice the difference between $600,000 and $4 million. They immediately took it to court, and this was before that incredible, the good decision on McCain-Feingold. And so they slapped it down, but I still made it very clear to a lot of the business community that the same people who pass this resolution are going to be the ones handing out the contracts after it passes. This helped stall them up. Now, the concentrated interests, who are they? Are they really people giving $25? When they get the money for these campaigns, they'll say, we've got 10,000 people, and the average contribution is $50. Well, that's because, you've got $1 million from one guy and 25 cents from somebody else, and they split the difference, and it works. But who are these people? They are the chambers of commerce. The chambers of commerce and, quote, economic development corporations have no interest in defending free markets. They have no interest in capitalism. They have no interest in competitiveness. Their job today is to get contracts for their buddies. This is what they do. I believe that there is a separate level of hell reserved for bond dealers. Behind any tax increase, you will find a group of bond dealers. They don't care what they're bonding for as long as they get some of the action, and they know how to work these. Now, if they follow what Reason Foundation is doing, they'd realize, you could also make a lot of money in bonding in the private sector, and you wouldn't have to do all of this other stuff. We need to educate them. There were the consultants, there were the engineers, there were the land developers. Oh, land developers everywhere on all the station corridors. There were the tax attorneys. There was the utility companies who got to supply the power for the trolley cars. It goes on and on and on. I'll give you an example. Simmons Corporation makes the light rail cars for Denver. We only buy Simmons cars. That's the decision. So when Simmons decides to give $100,000 to the campaign, is that a contribution or is that just good business? What an incredible investment for $100,000. They're going to get $50 million worth in contracts. Those are the people who finance the campaigns. That's where it comes from. That's where the concentrated interests are. But there's more to it than that for them. The other concentrated interests are what I call the religious concentrated interests. These are the people who follow Al Gore. These are the people who are religiously concerned about their constituency group. I don't know if this lady is still here, but the woman from the pedestrian community. This was a perfect example of somebody who is a religious concentrated interest. This is a personal mission for her, and there's a lot more on their side than on our side, because on our side, well, we're diffused interest. We'd rather go to our kids' baseball game than to worry if we're going to walk there or not, or how other people get there. These people show up and they work. When I was on the board, I had a revelation once when I was at one of these endless public meetings, the meetings that they get paid to go to, but we volunteer to go to. I walk in, and I'm there destroying my day, destroying the day that I could be talking to customers, doing other things, spending time with my family, and in walks a representative from every county. In walks a representative who gets paid from all the planning commissions of all the counties, from the MPO, from a couple of the economic development corporations that get paid for it, and then roll in all the religious folks, the pedestrian community, the bicycle community, the anti-car community, the green community. And they just keep coming in. They just keep coming in, and every time they come in, I just see another 15 minutes of my life vanish. And I'm thinking, no wonder they win, because they have concentrated interests, they will have the time, this is what they do. They're on a mission from God, and their God's not going to love them unless they do that. I'm not too sure how we break this. We need to find concentrated interests. In 1997, when we were successful about this, we were able to find victims. When running a no campaign, you must find victims. You must find people who are willing to do this. Now, one of the corridors went through a residential area. Victims. These people were hacked off. These people were a concentrated group of people. This wasn't going through an empty corridor down by the warehouses or some other place. These were people who said, this is my backyard. There's a vacant railroad track there that's been vacant when I bought the land, and if this thing goes through, there's going to be a train going through at grade in my backyard. Those people had the motivation to get up and go. And if we didn't have those people, we wouldn't have won. Why? Because we needed people who could organize, who could go out to rallies, who could go out and sabotage what the other team was doing every time they brought their coalitions together. How do you find those folks? I'm not sure. I want to talk a little bit about the kumbaya effect, because this is what they do. They know how to play concentrated interests. They know how to pay off concentrated interests. You made mention of black ministers. We've actually made entrees to those folks as well. But it was amazing in Denver in 2002, the Ministerial Alliance, all the groups that, all the churches that work in a group went the other way. Why is it that they went the other way? I'm not too sure. But they went the other way because they were, when putting together the proposal, they said, we will put in minority business guarantees that will do X amount of contracts for minority businesses. This will help out your constituents. We'll do this, we'll do this. They pay them off. They know how to buy off those constituencies that might go the other way. So if you're working on a no campaign, the simple words: divide, 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 divide. You must find victims. You must find constituencies that are willing to come up and say, I'm not for this. You start off with the taxpayers. You start off with the wacky politicians who are brave enough to say, the arithmetic here sucks. Then you try to keep getting more and more of those folks. There are problems with victims, and you need to be aware of that. There are problems with people like us, because very quickly we get seen as gadflies. We get seen as people who just buzz around and we don't want any progress. We don't like rail, we don't like urban growth boundaries, we don't like all this other good stuff. We're gadflies and we're easy to dismiss. That's why it's good to spread this around. Be careful of the gadfly problem, because it happens. That's why we started MAD. Mothers are driving, MAD. The idea was to get a different face, a softer face, an emotional face on the mobility issue. It would be terrific if AAA or other driving groups actually became a concentrated interest. Somebody slap him because it's hurting my feelings. One of the things that I've found is absolutely crucial in this is the early start. Our team always starts too late. Why do chambers of commerce work? Because they are the central place. They're the headquarters for the bad team, and they have a window of several years getting something through. Fast Tracks, which passed in 2004, was actually conceived and they began work in 2000. And I'm not talking about the work of the planning of where it would go and what it would look like. I'm talking about the political planning of how they would make this happen, how they would get permission to put it on the ballot, how they would pay off different constituencies, what their polling would do, how they would work. If we had something on the other side, and this is where I think think tanks really have an opportunity if we could ever get the funding to do it. If we had people who show up at the meetings, and I'm not talking about the meetings when they say, we want your final suggestions on the plan. No, the meetings before the meetings before the meetings before the meetings, so that we're there to stick sticks in the spokes of what they're doing. We can stop this to happen. The problem is when we're playing defense, we start too late because we don't have the resources to start when they start. They're willing to do it. We need to expose the corporate welfare angle on this. We need to find odd bedfellows. And those odd bedfellows include folks like Greens. There are some Greens who now realize that trolley cars give you sprawl, and maybe that's not a good thing. We've got to find people who are willing to, where eyebrows are raised. You have to have good relations with the media. You absolutely, positively must have good relations with the media. Even if they love light rail, or love urban growth boundaries, you need somebody respectable who can talk to them. If you can't talk to them because you are the gadfly, you've got to find somebody else who can go around and make all those trips. Mind you, this is what the chamber does. It's what all the cities do, is they make visits to every newspaper, every weekly newspaper, every community newspaper, every big employer that has a newsletter that goes out to their employees once a month. They're constantly on the ground. They're constantly working these issues. When running a negative campaign, you must find one flaw. One flaw. And this is one of the problems I think we've had in fighting proposals in the past, is that we would give them a whole litany of flaws, saying, I don't care why you vote against it, here's a menu of dumb things that this thing is going to do, pick one and go with it. They're very good at finding the one flaw that's going to be emotional, that they've polled, that pulls the most. It's going to kill kids at grade. It's going to cost too much. In 1997, it was a couple of the corridors, they didn't tell us what the technology was. What are we buying? So I went with a pig and a poke idea. We don't know what this is. And I said, is it going to be a trolley car? Is it going to be bus rapid transit? And I challenged the general manager at a public debate, can you guarantee me that it's not going to become a water log ride after you do all your tests? And he said, it's not going to become a water log ride. And I said, is there anything there that actually proves it's not going to be a water log ride? And he said, no, we can't prove that, but don't worry. And so that's what helped bring this down. We need to find whatever the one weak part is that they're most vulnerable, and no matter if we agree that it's the highest, most important thing, we run on it. Again, if you're running a positive campaign, and John Tillman, I think, is doing more of those, and I think that's the right way to do it, going after eminent domain, being positive, you take all those things and you go in reverse. You get people to join. You make sure to get as many groups together to embrace what you're doing and sign on. But all the same things matter. Early start, finding concentrated interests. If we can't find them, we lose. I gotta tell you, and I've told a few people during this conference, I'm not very optimistic about our movement right now. I think because of this problem with special interest money, of special interest time, and that we're working against them on a rather ethereal issue, I think we've got something tough. Because people in my city love light rail. People in my city love growth control. Why? Because they're not thinking, they're emoting. And until we find ways to emote differently, to find not why it's bad on a policy sense, but why it's bad, politically corrupt, we're not going to win. We need emotional hooks. We're not going to get those emotional hooks until we find some of these concentrated interests. Diffused interests lose. It's public choice theory, and that's the problem that all taxpayers have. That's the problem we have. I wish I had something more positive to tell you, but I'm hungover. Thank you.